The wind howled through the pines like a wounded spirit. The moon, thin and pale, hung low over the jagged cliffs of Arizona Territory. In a weather-beaten cabin near the edge of a dry creek, a woman of 30 sat trembling by a dying fire. Her name was Elena Ward, and every board of that cabin seemed to echo with her heartbeat. She'd bolted the door with every latch she could find, shoved a heavy oak table against it, and now sat clutching her rifle, though her hand shook too much to aim it straight. The knocking had started an hour ago, slow, deliberate, and steady. Knock. 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 Then silence. Then again, louder this time. Outside, torchlight flickered between the trees. She could see it through the cracks in the shutter shadows, moving like ghosts. A group of men, painted in red clay and wearing feathers that shimmered in firelight, stood just beyond the porch. They were Apache, and their leader pounded on the cabin door again, this time with the butt of his spear. "Open!" A voice barked in broken English. Elena swallowed hard, pressing her back to the wall. Her heart was hammering so violently she thought it might burst. She'd come to this godforsaken place 3 days ago, fleeing from something far worse than the wilderness. But she hadn't expected them to find her here, nor did she understand why they had. "Go away," she cried, her voice breaking. "I have nothing for you." There was silence, except for the sound of crackling torches, and the night wind brushing against the door. Then a deep voice spoke from among them. "We seek truth. You hide it." Elena's breath caught in her throat. How could they possibly know? She stumbled back and nearly fell over the chair behind her. On the mantel above the hearth, something gleamed in the firelight, a small, blood-stained knife wrapped in cloth. The same knife she'd taken from the trail 2 nights ago. The same one she'd pulled from the body of a dying man near the canyon ridge. She had buried him with her own trembling hands. But not before he whispered something she couldn't forget. "If they find the knife, they'll come for you too." Now they were here. Outside, among the shadows, a tall figure had appeared. Tasun, an Apache scout with sharp eyes and long black hair braided down his back. He was younger than most of the warriors, but something about the cabin made his skin crawl. He'd been hunting deer with his tribe when they found the trail of blood, leading straight to this woman's door. He looked toward the cabin, then froze. There, above the doorframe, carved into the old wood, was a symbol, a spiral with 3 lines cutting through it. Tassim's eyes widened in shock. That was the mark of the lost tribe, the people of the Hollow Sun, a clan long vanished after a massacre 20 winters ago. None but his grandfather's stories had ever mentioned them again, and now their mark was on a white woman's cabin. Tasun lowered his torch, whispering something in Apache that made the others fall silent. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. Could it be that this woman had something to do with the curse his people feared? Inside, Elena heard them muttering, and though she didn't understand the words, she could feel the tension shift. The knocking stopped. Then came footsteps moving in a circle around the cabin. She rushed to the window and peeked through the slats. Shadows moved between the trees, forming a ring around her home. She whispered a prayer, gripping the rifle tighter. "God, please." Not again. Suddenly, the night split open with a scream, a cry of fear from one of the Apache men. Then another. The sound of running feet echoed through the dark. Elena jumped back from the window. What was happening out there? Through the firelight, she saw one of the warriors fall to his knees, clutching his face as if blinded. Another stumbled back, pointing toward the woods. Something or someone was out there. Then silence again. Only Tasun remained standing, his face pale under the moon. He looked toward the cabin, his eyes meeting Elena's through the crack in the shutters. For a long, breathless moment, neither moved. Then, softly, he spoke, this time not in anger, but in disbelief. "You? You wear their mark." Elena's knees buckled. She didn't know what he meant, but she saw the fear in his eyes, and it chilled her more than any winter night. The wind rattled the roof. The torches flickered, and from deep within the forest came the sound of a whisper like the echo of a child's voice. Calling her name, Elena dropped the rifle. Something ancient was awake in those woods, and it was coming for her. The wind hissed like a warning through the cracks of the cabin. Elena Ward sat motionless beside the cold hearth, the rifle across her lap trembling in her grip. Outside, the torches guttered in the night breeze, and the Apache scout named Tassoon still stood facing her cabin, his eyes wide and uncertain. The others had fallen back toward the tree line after the strange screams echoed from the woods, leaving Tassoon alone near the porch. The forest had gone deathly quiet, as if the land itself were holding its breath. Elena dared a whisper. "What do you want from me?" No answer came at first. Tassoon lowered his torch slowly, eyes still locked on the spiral carved above her door, the same spiral that had been branded into his childhood memory like a ghost that never faded. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough, heavy with disbelief. "Where did you find that mark?" Elena blinked, confusion washing over her fear. "What mark?" He stepped closer, the wooden boards creaking beneath his bare feet. "Above your door. The spiral with the 3 lines. That is no carving of yours." Elena's throat tightened. "It was already here when I bought this place," she said. "The old man who owned the cabin died last winter. I didn't touch it." Tassoon's jaw flexed. "No man of white skin would carve that. It belongs to the people of the Hollow Sun, a tribe that vanished long before your people came here." He glanced into the trees, where the shadows seemed thicker now. "The mark means cursed ground." The words chilled her. "Cursed?" He nodded. "Those who bear that sign carry the voices of the dead." Elena gripped the rifle tighter. "Listen, I don't know anything about curses. I'm just trying to survive out here. I came because—" She stopped herself. The memories surged like a wave, the blood, the man on the trail, the knife she'd hidden. She swallowed hard. "Because I needed to be alone." Tassoon's eyes sharpened. "Alone does not mean safe." Before she could reply, the forest came alive again, a rustle here, a whisper there, as if the trees themselves were murmuring secrets. The torchlight flickered violently, casting shadows that danced across Tassoon's chest and the cabin walls. He turned sharply toward the woods, hand on his knife. "They're watching." "Who?" Elena asked, heart pounding. "The hollow ones," he whispered. "The ones who were buried but never left." A gust of cold wind slammed against the cabin, blowing out several torches. The darkness deepened, swallowing the forest whole. Tassoon backed toward the door instinctively, his face tense. For a brief second, he looked almost humanly afraid, not like the proud warrior who had arrived demanding truth. Inside, Elena's fear gave way to something else, curiosity mixed with dread. She stepped closer to the window. "What did you mean by vanished?" she asked softly. He hesitated. "When I was a boy, the elders told stories. The Hollow Sun people made a pact with the spirits of the mountains. They guarded a sacred stone, one that could bring dreams or death. When they betrayed that pact, the earth swallowed them. Only their mark remained." His gaze drifted toward the cabin symbol again. "Your home stands on their bones." Elena's stomach turned. "You're saying this place is built over a burial ground?" Tassoon's eyes darkened. "No, over a promise broken." Another whisper came from the forest, this one closer, clearer. It sounded like a child's voice calling, "Mother." Elena froze. "Did you hear that?" Tassoon nodded grimly. "Yes." Suddenly, something struck the cabin wall from outside, hard enough to shake the lantern from its hook. The glass shattered, plunging the room into half-darkness. Elena stumbled back, clutching her rifle. Tasun whirled toward the noise. His torch flickered, revealing a handprint pressed into the window, small, human, but glowing faintly red. "Stay inside," he ordered. "Don't open that door for anyone. What are you going to do?" He took a breath, his muscles taut. "Find what walks here tonight." Elena wanted to stop him, to beg him not to go into that black forest, but before she could speak, he vanished into the shadows, the sound of his bare feet fading down the steps. For a moment, silence returned, until she heard it. From somewhere deep in the woods came a strange rhythm, like the beating of a drum buried under the earth. It was faint, but steady, and it was growing louder. Elena's hands trembled around the rifle. Her breath came shallow. Then she noticed it, the spiral above the door, once dull, now glowing faintly with ember light. Outside, Tasun stopped dead in his tracks as the same light flickered under his feet, tracing ancient symbols in the soil. And far beyond the tree line, something answered the drumbeat with a whisper that seemed to curl through the air like smoke. "The mark remembers who broke the promise." Tassin's blood ran cold. And in that moment, he realized the curse had already awakened. The night no longer felt like night. It felt like something alive, something breathing with a slow, ancient rhythm that came from deep within the earth. Elena Ward sat frozen in her cabin, staring at the spiral mark glowing faintly above the door. The rifle across her lap had gone cold, and her breath fogged the air even though the fire still burned. Each thud of that distant drumbeat seemed to echo inside her chest. Outside, Tasun moved carefully through the dark woods, his torch long gone, the only light coming from the strange markings that pulsed faintly beneath his feet. Every instinct told him to turn back, to leave the white woman and her cursed land behind, but something stronger held him there. He needed to know why that mark had returned. He stopped at the edge of a clearing. The soil was disturbed, as if something had been dug up recently. Kneeling, he pressed his palm to the ground. The earth was warm, and under it he could feel it, a faint vibration like a heartbeat. He whispered a prayer in Apache, then drew a small charm from his necklace, a fragment of carved turquoise shaped like the sun. His grandfather had given it to him years ago, saying it would protect him from restless spirits. But tonight, even that charm felt cold. A rustle broke the silence behind him. Tasun spun, knife drawn. "Elena," he hissed. She stepped into the moonlight, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. "I couldn't stay in there," she said breathlessly. "The mark, it's glowing brighter. I think it's calling something." He frowned. "You should not be here." "I had to see," she whispered. "I heard the drums too." Tasun studied her. The woman's voice trembled, but there was something else in her tone, curiosity, almost hunger for truth. "You don't understand what this is," he said. "The earth remembers what men forget." Elena's eyes darted toward the disturbed soil. "What's under there?" He hesitated. "Graves. Or what's left of them." The word made her stomach twist. "Graves?" He nodded slowly. "My people say the Hollow Sun tribe was destroyed for betraying their vow. They promised to protect a sacred thing, something that could bind souls to the land. But greed poisoned them. They used it to keep themselves alive after death." Elena swallowed hard. "You think that's what this is? That they're still here?" Tasun looked at her, the moonlight catching the reflection of his eyes. "I don't think. I know." A sound came from the soil, a faint crack like splitting wood. Both of them stepped back. The ground trembled slightly, dust rising. Tasun pulled Elena behind him, knife ready. The dirt shifted again. Something beneath it moved. Then, from the center of the disturbed patch, a wooden box began to push upward as if being lifted by unseen hands. It was old, weather-worn, bound with rusted metal bands. Elena gasped. That's the same box I saw near the canyon. Tassin's head whipped toward her. You've seen this before? She nodded shakily. 2 nights ago, a man was dying near the ridge. He gave me a knife, said it had to be buried with the box. I was scared, so I took it and ran. Realization hit Tassin like a strike of lightning. You broke the seal, he said. That knife was the binding. Before Elena could reply, the box shuddered and cracked open. A cold wind burst from inside, carrying the smell of dust and decay. Within the darkness of the box, faint red light glowed like burning embers. The drumbeat stopped. Then a whisper rose from the open earth, a dozen voices speaking as one. The promise was broken. The mark remembers. Elena staggered back, screaming. Tassin caught her by the arm, pulling her away as the ground caved in where the box had been. Out of the sinking soil, hands began to emerge, gray, skeletal, but glowing faintly red, clawing toward the surface. Run! Tassin shouted. They bolted through the trees, branches whipping at their faces, the sound of whispering following them like a wave. Elena stumbled, nearly falling, but Tassin pulled her forward with powerful strength. Behind them, the clearing pulsed with eerie red light. The earth was opening wider, revealing shapes, shadows of what once were people, crawling upward toward the moonlight. They reached the cabin and slammed the door shut. Elena pressed her back to it, gasping for breath. What were those things? She cried. Tassin's face was pale with fury and fear. The Hollow Sun tribe, he said. You freed them. Elena shook her head violently. I didn't mean to. I didn't know. The land doesn't care what you meant, he said. Now the promise is broken again. Outside, the drums began once more, but this time they came from every direction. The ground trembled beneath their feet. And through the window, Elena saw shapes moving among the trees, dozens of them, eyes burning red in the dark. The night had teeth now biting cold, sharp with fear. Inside the cabin, Elena, Ward, and Tassin stood shoulder to shoulder as the drums outside pounded like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The air was thick with the smell of burning wood and dust. Every board of the cabin rattled as if something heavy moved beneath it. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. There? Out there, aren't they? Tassin didn't answer right away. He was standing near the window, his sharp eyes scanning the forest beyond the glass. The glow of the torches was gone. In its place was a dim, shifting red haze-like fire seen through smoke. They are not of this world anymore, he said finally. But they walk it again because the bond was broken. Elena swallowed hard. Then tell me how to fix it. He turned, the flickering light catching the angles of his face. You cannot fix what was done. You can only return what was stolen. Elena frowned. The knife? Yes, he said grimly. The knife binds the dead to their rest. It must be returned to the earth where it was taken. But you said you buried the man? I did, she said quickly. By the canyon ridge. But that was 2 nights ago. Tassin's expression darkened. Then we must reach him before dawn. If the Hollow Ones rise fully before sunrise, no sun will burn them back again. A sudden crash made both of them flinch. The window shattered, shards sprang across the floor. Elena screamed as a gray hand, bone and sinew, reached inside, groping blindly for her. Tassin grabbed his knife and slashed. The hand withdrew with a shriek like wind through broken glass. The forest outside came alive with whispers, hundreds of voices murmuring her name. Elena. Elena. Elena backed away, trembling. Why are they calling me? Tassin's face hardened. Because you carry the mark now. The one above your door, it has bound itself to you. Before she could speak, The front door shook violently, as if struck by a battering ram. The table she'd wedged against had slid an inch. Tasun rushed forward, shoving his shoulder against the wood. "Help me," he barked. Together they pressed against the door as something pounded from the other side, slow, rhythmic hits that grew stronger each time. The hinges groaned. Elena's heart pounded. They're going to break in. Tassin's eyes darted to the back of the cabin. "There's a cellar, yes?" She nodded breathlessly. "Behind the stove." "Go, take the knife." Elena hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll hold them long enough for you to get out," he said. "You must reach the ridge before dawn. If I fall, keep going." The door cracked at the edge. A gray hand reached through the splintered gap. Tasun roared, slammed his shoulder against it, and stabbed downward, the blade of his knife sinking deep into something that hissed and withdrew. Elena ran to the hearth, moving the iron stove aside with all her strength. Beneath it, a small trapdoor led down into the root cellar. She grabbed her satchel, stuffed the blood-stained knife inside, and turned back just as Tasun staggered from another impact. "Go!" he shouted. She hesitated one last second, eyes locked with his. "You'd better follow me." Tasun gave a brief, grim nod. "If the spirits allow it." She dropped through the trapdoor, landing hard on the dirt below. The cellar was narrow and cold, lined with old barrels and the scent of earth. She could still hear the pounding above the door splintering, the haunting voices growing louder. Then a single shout echoed down through the floorboards. Tassin's voice. "Elena, run!" The next moment, the sound was drowned by a crash that shook the cabin. Elena screamed and scrambled toward the back wall of the cellar, where a narrow passage led into the woods. Crawling through it, dirt filling her nails and hair, she emerged behind the cabin into a night painted in red and shadow. The forest was alive with movement. Figures, dozens of them, moved between the trees. Some crawled, some walked, some simply floated. Their eyes glowed like embers. Elena clutched the satchel to her chest and whispered, "Please, God, guide me." Then she ran. Branches clawed at her face as she stumbled through the underbrush, following the faint line of moonlight toward the canyon ridge. Behind her, she heard screams, men's voices, and something else, something older and inhuman. When she finally looked back, the cabin was burning. Flames licked through the roof, casting light across the forest. For a moment, she thought she saw Tassin's silhouette in the firelight standing tall among the red smoke, his blade raised toward the sky. But then he was gone. The wind carried the last whisper from the cabin to her ears. The hollow sun rises before dawn. Elena tightened her grip on the satchel and ran faster. Snow kept falling that night, silent as breath, covering the woods and muffling every sound except the pounding of the wind. Inside the cabin, Evelyn sat beside the small fire. Her fingers trembling around the rifle, she no longer had the strength to hold steady. The room smelled of smoke, pine, and fear. Outside, Tarak stood motionless under the storm, his bare chest rising and falling with deep, controlled breaths. He had left his warriors at the edge of the trees. This moment was his burden to carry. The woman in that cabin had been part of something he never expected to face again. He stepped closer to the door, his boots crunching softly in the snow. "Evelyn," he said through the wind, his voice deep but calm. "I know you're frightened, but I will not harm you." She jumped at the sound of his voice, the rifle clattering against the floor. Her heart raced wildly. "Don't come any closer," she shouted, backing away. "I know what you people do to intruders. You'll kill me like you killed." Tarak's tone turned cold. "Like we killed who?" She froze. The firelight flickered across her pale face. She looked at him through the small gap in the shutter. "My husband," she whispered. 3 winters ago." He never came back from the valley. They said your tribe found him. They said you left him to die." Tarak's eyes darkened, but not with anger, with memory. "Your husband," he said slowly. "A man with a red coat and a gun that carried silver bullets?" Evelyn nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. "Yes. Thomas. He was a surveyor. He just wanted to mark the land." Tarak's jaw tightened. "He was not marking land. He was marking graves. The valley he entered was sacred, where our ancestors rest. He came with men who carried fire and iron. We warned them. He raised his gun first." Evelyn's lips parted in disbelief. "No, you're lying." "I wish I were," Tarak said softly. "He died with the name of greed on his tongue, not prayer." The wind howled through the cracks of the cabin. Evelyn sank to her knees, clutching her chest as the truth collided with her grief. All this time, she had hated the Apache for stealing her life, but maybe she had never known what was stolen first. Tarak stepped closer to the cabin wall, his shadow stretching across the wooden planks. "We are not the ghosts you think we are, Evelyn. We protect what was given to us by the Great Spirit. But now, something else has come. Something even my tribe fears." Her head lifted. "What do you mean?" Tarak looked toward the dark tree line. In the distance, a faint drumming echoed not from his people, but something older. "The land is bleeding," he said. "Your husband's men broke the seal of a burial cave. Now the spirits wander. My warriors came to warn you. They thought you carried his maps." Evelyn's voice trembled. "The maps? They're here. I found them hidden in his chest. I thought they were harmless." Tarak's expression hardened. "They are not. They call to what sleeps beneath the hills." Before she could respond, a deep rumble shook the ground. The window rattled violently, and the fire dimmed to embers. Evelyn screamed, clutching the wall for balance. Tarak burst through the door just as the floorboards cracked. The earth beneath the cabin seemed to breathe. From the darkness outside, a sound like thunder rolled low, endless, unnatural. Tarak reached for her hand. "We must go." Evelyn hesitated only for a second before grabbing his arm. His skin was hot despite the freezing air, the pulse beneath his wrist strong and human. They rushed out into the snow. Behind them, the cabin groaned, then split apart, the chimney collapsing in a cloud of sparks. Evelyn turned back, tears freezing on her cheeks. "My home." Tarak tightened his grip. "Home can be rebuilt. But if we stay, there will be no land left to build on." As they ran into the forest, the faint glow of the collapsing cabin faded behind them. Above the trees, a strange red light shimmered like blood over the hills. And for the first time, Evelyn realized the danger outside her door had never been the Apache. It was something far older, and it had been waiting for her husband's sin to awaken. The wind screamed across the dark valley as Evelyn and Tarak climbed the ridge, their breath turning to mist in the icy air. The snow had stopped, but a strange red haze lingered above the treetops, pulsing like a living wound in the sky. They stopped near a fallen pine, both gasping from the climb. Evelyn pressed a hand to her chest, her heartbeat wild. "That light, what is it?" she asked. Tarak knelt beside her, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. "The earth remembers what was done," he said quietly. "Your husband's men broke open the sacred ground beneath those hills. Now the spirits of the restless dead rise with the cold." Evelyn shivered, not from the chill but from the tremor in his voice. "You said the spirits were angry. But what did they want from me?" Tarak turned to her, the firelight from the distant hills flickering across his face. "You hold what called them," he said, "the maps. They show where the old ones sleep. You must return them before it is too late." She shook her head, clutching her satchel. "But the cabinet's gone. Everything burned." He looked at her intensely, his long black hair blowing in the wind. Not everything. You wear the truth around your neck. Evelyn frowned. Then she realized beneath her coat she still wore a small locket Thomas had given her before he vanished. Inside, folded tight, was a tiny map torn from a larger sheet. The final marking her husband had hidden from the world. Her lips trembled. This is what they're after? Tarak nodded gravely. Yes, the spirits cannot rest while it remains with the living. You must return it to the sacred cave. They began descending the ridge, guided only by the glow from the hills. Snow crunched underfoot, and the forest seemed to whisper as they passed, branches creaking like old bones. As they walked, Evelyn found herself glancing at him. The firelight shimmered over his bare chest, the tribal beads around his neck glinting faintly. He moved like a creature born of both man and storm, silent, purposeful, untamed. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. Tarak didn't look at her. Because the land remembers all souls, not just the Apache. If the spirits break free, they will not stop at the valley. They will take everything, your people and mine. His words sank deep into her. The man she once thought her enemy was the only one standing between her and something ancient and merciless. They reached a clearing where the ground was torn apart as if something had clawed its way out from beneath. The air shimmered with heat, though the night was cold. Evelyn stepped closer, her voice shaking. "Is this the place?" Tarak held out his hand. "Stay behind me." He moved slowly toward the jagged opening in the ground. From within, a low, rhythmic sound echoed, a drumbeat made by no living hand. The red glow bled upward, casting strange shadows over the snow. Suddenly, the earth shuddered. A gust of air burst from the opening, carrying the smell of iron and decay. Evelyn stumbled back, crying out as ghostly figures flickered in the haze shapes of men and beasts, caught between this world and the next. Tarak drew a blade from his belt, its edge engraved with symbols that shimmered faintly. "Stay close," he commanded. One of the spirits, a tall, faceless shadow, rose from the ground and lunged. Tarak slashed through it, his blade glowing as it met the darkness. The thing wailed, its voice like wind through bones. Evelyn fell to her knees, clutching the locket. "Please," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know what he did." "I didn't know." Tarak turned, his voice deep and steady. "Then make it right. Return it." She ripped open the locket, pulling out the small, folded map. Her hands shook as she held it above the pit. For a moment, the spirits froze, their eyes glowing white. Then she let it fall. The paper caught in the red wind, spinning like a dying leaf before vanishing into the light. Silence followed. Then, slowly, the glow began to fade. The wind softened. The air grew still. Tarak lowered his blade, breathing heavily. Evelyn collapsed against him, sobbing into his chest. He held her gently, his hand resting on her back. "It's over," he murmured. But deep inside, he knew it wasn't. The ground still pulsed faintly beneath their feet like a heartbeat that hadn't yet stopped. He looked toward the dark horizon, his jaw tightening. "The map has been returned," he said quietly. But something else woke when the seal broke. Evelyn lifted her tear-streaked face. "What do you mean?" Tarak looked at her with solemn eyes. "The dead are at peace, but the earth is not." Far in the distance, thunder rolled again, only this time it came from beneath the ground. The night had fallen into an unnatural stillness. Not even the wind dared whisper across the ridge. Evelyn leaned against a tree, her body trembling, the cold biting through her coat. Her eyes were red from tears and smoke, her breath shallow. The locket was gone, swallowed by the pit that had once glowed like blood. Beside her, Tarak stood tall and unmoving, his dark hair blowing softly in the dying wind. The red light from the hills had faded, but a dull vibration still pulsed beneath their feet, like the heartbeat of something sleeping, something not entirely gone. "Is it over?" Evelyn whispered. Tarak didn't answer at first. He was staring at the horizon where the faintest light of dawn touched the sky, pale and trembling. For now, he said at last. But the earth remembers, Evelyn, always. She closed her eyes, exhausted, the weight of grief and truth pressing down on her. I thought I'd lost everything, she murmured. My home, my husband, even my faith in myself. Tarak turned toward her, his gaze soft but unreadable. You have not lost everything, he said. You have seen what most refuse to see. You have faced the spirits and lived. That makes you part of this land, now part of its story. Evelyn looked up at him, her lips trembling. But I don't belong here, she said. Your people, your tribe, they'll never forgive what mine did. He took a slow step closer, the snow crunching under his boots. Forgiveness is not something that falls from the sky like snow, he said quietly. It must be built, one heartbeat at a time. For a long moment, they stood there in silence. The first streak of sunlight touched Tarak's face, making his bronze skin glow and the turquoise beads around his neck shimmer faintly. Evelyn felt something stir in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. Tarak, she said softly, why did you come for me? You could have let me die in that cabin. He looked at her, his eyes dark and deep as the valley below. Because the spirits spoke your name, he said. They said the woman of the fire must return what was taken or the land would die. I did not understand then. Now I do. Evelyn frowned slightly. What do you understand? That fire, he said, placing a hand gently over her heart, was never just in your home. It was here. His touch was warm despite the cold, steady despite the trembling earth. She felt tears well again, not of fear this time, but of something else entirely. But before she could speak, the ground beneath them groaned again, and a faint rumble echoed from the hills. Tarak's head snapped up, his body tense. It is not finished, he said sharply. Evelyn's heart pounded. I thought we sealed it. We did, Tarak said, scanning the ground. But the land demands balance. It took something, now it must give something back. Suddenly, the snow between them began to sink. Evelyn stumbled backward, gasping, as the earth opened in a narrow crack. From the gap rose a faint, glowing mist, not red, but gold this time. It swirled upward, warm and soft like sunlight. Tarak watched in awe. The ancestors, he whispered. They blessed the land again. Evelyn stepped closer, the golden light reflecting in her eyes. From within the mist, she thought she saw faces, gentle, ancient, and calm. Her husband's face was not among them, and somehow that brought her peace. The mist drifted higher, spreading across the ridge like dawn itself. The trembling stopped. The heartbeat of the earth slowed, then faded. Only silence remained. Tarak exhaled, his shoulders finally relaxing. It is done, he said. Evelyn turned toward him, smiling faintly through her tears. Then, I suppose this is goodbye. He looked at her for a long moment, his gaze steady. Goodbyes are for those who never meet again, he said softly. The land will remember you. So will I. She reached up, her gloved hand brushing against the beads around his neck. And I'll remember you, she whispered. They stood like that for a moment, two souls from different worlds, bound by the same storm. Then Tarak stepped back, his silhouette framed by the rising sun. Go east, he said. There's a settlement 2 days away. You'll be safe there. Tell them the land sleeps again. Evelyn nodded, unable to speak. She turned, her boots crunching through the snow, her figure small against the vast wilderness. When she looked back one last time, Tarak was gone, only the faint footprints where he had stood remained. The wind picked up gently, carrying the scent of pine and firewood. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried, soaring into the light of dawn. Evelyn pressed her hand over her heart, feeling the warmth that lingered there, and whispered into the wind, "Thank you, Tarak." The hills shimmered under the new sun, silent but alive. The spirits had returned to rest. The land was healing. And somewhere in that silence, the heartbeat of the earth began again, steady, calm, and eternal.